Well, guys, I thought I'd make a video about something a little bit different, and that is book recommendations. So, I'm an avid reader of books and websites or whatever else, particularly around anything related to gardening and plants. And the first book I'm going to recommend is Creating a Forest Garden by Martin Crawford. So, if anybody doesn't know who Martin Crawford is, you should know who he is, because he is I think he's the founder of Agroforestry UK and probably one of the foremost authorities on forest gardening in temperate climates, which this book is about. There are plenty of forest gardening books out there, but not necessarily based around the UK climates, which he is based in. And it's a really, really good book. So for most part, most of the book talks about forest gardening and what it is and how to do it. But for me, the biggest appeal in this book was the catalogue of plant species that he recommends for growing in the UK climate, and it almost reads like an encyclopedia. And a lot of these, when I bought this book, I'd never heard of. So, for example, Oregon grapes is one here. They're actually used as landscaping plants all over the place. Buffalo currants, trifoliate orange, Chilean guavas, Nanking cherries. There's lots in there. Mountain peppers, Chinese cedar, American allspice, northern bayberry. And the way the book is laid out is that I think this the shrub species. He has a chapter on canopy species, and then he has another chapter on ground layer and herbaceous species. So it's a mix of fruiting plants, vegetables, salad plants and herbs and whatnot. Here's another one I never heard of, foam flower. Periwinkles. Well, I heard of them. I didn't know you could eat them. Barren strawberries, soapwort. But there's tons in there, and very, very, very good book. I constantly find myself coming back to it. And very good for anybody interested in growing in a temperate climate. Next book I recommend is the same author, Martin Crawford, and it's about how to grow perennial vegetables. So a lot of this book borrows from this one. If I had to recommend one book, it's this one. But it does flesh out in a bit more detail some of those vegetables, or how to approach vegetable gardening in and of itself, which is you can see here. Again, like the other book, he goes through tons of, or he kind of catalogues a lot of species that you can grow. And again, lots of these I never knew you could eat or even grow. There's some there, Mashua, which is an edible tuber, Mitsuba and honeywort or honewort, mountain sorrel. Some of these are kind of standard fare that most people have heard of. Mulberries, now in this context, he's using them for edible leaves. So there's plenty of tree leaves out there that are edible and can be used in salads. Mulberry, for example, can be used as salad leaves, but only particularly in early spring. But yeah, there's tons in there, even some cacti species like nodding onion as well, something I'd never heard of, but a very, very good book. Next one I recommend is by another UK native, although he doesn't live in the UK anymore, and his name is Stephen Barstow. And this plan focuses on vegetables slash salad type plants, and it's called Around the World in 80 Plants, so catalogues 80 plants. And he's divided this book into, let's find this chapter here, regions where plants are actually native to or from. So he starts with Western and Central Europe, Southern Europe and the Mediterranean, Caucasus, Himalayas and Siberia, Far East and Australia and so on. And again, just like Martin Crawford's book, tons in here that I'd never ever heard of. Well, to give you an example, this one here is Sweet Cicely. Now, I had heard of this, but what Stephen Barstow does is goes into the history of each plant, which is actually fascinating. Talks about how they're cultivated by region. So you can have different approaches to cultivating plants depending on where they're growing. And there are some plants in here that Martin Crawford doesn't catalogue at all, and some plants that had very, very little written about them before Stephen ever got his hands on them. So Stephen is an academic, and he really does a lot of research on this, but yeah, very, very good book. And again, almost reads like an encyclopedia. I come back to this every now and then just to have a look at some other plants that I don't have or that I might want to get my hands on. Last one is just a random purchase that I found in a bookshop, and it's called Incredible Edibles by an author called Matthew Biggs, so another UK native, and I think he works for the RHS or either Kew Gardens. And all of these can be grown in the UK, although some of them you do need a greenhouse for, which he actually talks about in the book. And he has it split up into different parts. So obviously fruit at the end, somebody in and a lot of it is based around common stuff that you, again, like the other books, a lot of people might have never heard of. But I think in this, most people that watch this channel probably know a lot of these hardy passion fruit, Chilean guavas, honeyberries and whatnot. But some of the interesting ones I thought were fruiting vegetables. So for example, snake gourds, Turkish orange aubergine, never heard of that. The chickpeas, I didn't know they can grow in the UK. Some leafy greens, ostrich ferns, sushi hosta, strawberry spinach, walking stick, kale. So there's tons in there. And I'll just forward on to a part where he goes through how to grow a plant, just to give me an idea of how it's laid out. So take for example this one, Turkish orange aubergine, has some pictures of the plants, talks about the history, where they come from, how to grow them, maximum minimum temperatures, ideal soil types, and then how to harvest and how to eat them. A very, very, very good book, and as I said, I recommend for anybody around the UK. But that's 4 books for now. I might come back to this because I've loads of other books that are equally as fascinating as these. But yeah, there you go, folks. If anybody has any book recommendations, let me know. Certainly if they're in the same vein as these ones here. Take it easy, guys.